Hey everybody, it is Kelly Nielsen here at The Grief Guru. And on this channel, we talk about all things related to grief. What does it look like? What does it feel like? But most importantly, we share tips, tools, and resources on how to navigate through grief and get back to living a life that you love. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the loss after the loss. The way that your relationships are affected by the fact that you've experienced loss. It's something that happens to pretty much everyone that goes through loss, and we don't talk about it enough. So today we're going to be sharing some insights about that and what you can do to navigate the relationships after you've experienced loss. So let's get into it. This is something that I've experienced, and with so many of the folks that I work with, it's a common denominator that all of your relationships are bound to change in one way or another after you experience loss. In my own case, I lost my mom and then I lost my son. And so it kind of becomes this big elephant in the room that when you enter the room, your grief or your story, your trauma or tragedy also enters the room with you. And for a lot of people, it makes them uncomfortable. And so they don't really know what to say. So a lot of times they'll just say nothing because they don't want to offend you or hurt your feelings. And that can feel very isolating. In fact, as time goes on after the loss, you can feel more and more isolated and that the people around you just can't relate to what you're going through. And that is true. They most likely can't relate to what you're going through because until you've experienced loss, you don't really know what it's like. And so for those of us who are grieving, we need to remember that and try to be patient with the people around us. We need to understand that they don't really understand. They don't fully have the capacity to understand what we're walking through. And most times they want to help us, they want to be helpful, and they just don't know how to do that. So sometimes it's up to us to facilitate a conversation, to open that door and just discuss the elephant in the room. Let people know how you're doing, how you're feeling, how they can best support you as a friend or as a support, as someone in your support network going forward. The fact that you're communicating what is helpful and what isn't helpful is going to go a long way to make them kind of feel comfortable and demystify the whole grief elephant in the room. Another tough thing is when you've lost someone, let's say, for example, if you lost a child, this happens a lot with my friends that I've lost a child, and when their children celebrate milestones, sometimes it can be bittersweet. They're celebrating that their child graduated high school or college or got engaged or, is expecting a child. And it's happy news for them. And it is happy news for me. But those milestones are also bittersweet in the sense that I'm reminded of the things that I don't get to experience with my son. I never saw him get married or he didn't have any kids, all those things. And so again, if we can just make room for both, I always tell my friends, and I truly mean, like, I want them to share all of their happy milestones with me. And I don't want them to feel an ounce of hesitation or shame or guilt that their kids are still here and living their lives. That's what they're supposed to do, and so I try to express that to them. My sister and I have talked about this as well. When her kids are being, difficult or something comes up with them, and she's like, oh, but I shouldn't even complain because at least my kids are still here, and we can't live the rest of our lives that way, So just to let people in your life, let them know that you want them to share those happy memories and moments with you. At the same time, it should work both ways, that if those happy memories, remind you or make you a little sad that you don't get to experience those things, it should be okay to voice that too. What we're aiming for on both sides is a place where both people can feel safe and comfortable to share their joys and their sorrows and their successes and their hardships, that no matter who's doing the talking or who's on the up or the downside, friendship and support is really supposed to be an equal place where both people can bring their feelings to the table and be heard and understood as best as possible, and to receive it with, unconditional love and support. So that's the goal. That's what we're aiming for. And the more that we can talk about it, whether you're the griever or the friend or family member support person of the person who's grieving, the better it's going to be. So if you are the griever, do your best to give patience, grace, love, understanding for those that are trying to support you, and do your best to advocate and communicate for what you want and need, and be prepared that some people may not be able to take this journey with you. Grief is a really hard and heavy thing. And until someone's forced to kind of deal with it and walk through it, not all people are cut out to be able to be a support to you and for you in this season. And that's okay. You know, I think a lot of people, myself included, it's disappointing when you think you should be able to go to people for support, or the people who have been your support in the past, and you're finding that they're just not able to support you in this time. It can be hard. And especially, this is probably the biggest time that you need them in your life, right? Like, this is the hardest thing that you've gone through. And if you can't depend on your support, that can be a really hard thing. But I want to encourage you and remind you that healing is your responsibility. And no matter where you find it or how long it takes you to find it, it's up to you to find the support that's going to be best for you in this season and in every future season of your life. And seasons do change. People come and go, and people are there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime, right? And grief might be the catalyst that causes some of those relationships to end, or causes the nature of a relationship to change, or creates a new relationship altogether. And all of those things are okay. And all of those things are just part of the process of grieving, and part of the process of this new you who's coming out on the other side of grief, that has a whole new perspective and a whole new different way of doing life, right? Because you're now creating a way of doing life that doesn't involve the person that you've lost. And most likely, you're going to be creating a new way of life that may be significantly different than the life you led before you lost your loved one. But all of that is okay. I want to just encourage both sides of the coin, both the griever and the friend, that this doesn't have to be a place, a judgment. You know, there doesn't have to be judgment on either side. If you're walking through grief and your friends just don't have the capacity to walk with you in the way that you need them to, that's okay. People cannot give you what they don't have. So that should just be a signal and a cue to you, though, that you need to seek support elsewhere. And as I mentioned, healing is up to you. So whether that's working with a coach or a pastor or a counselor or a support group or all of the above, whatever you need in order to get the support and tools that you need to recover, that's what you need to search for. And wish those friends, well, and move on your way. Now, I want to speak to the friends and family members of someone who's grieving. If you have a friend or family member that's just really going through it, and it's awkward, and you don't know what to say, and you don't want to hurt their feelings, can I just encourage you to say exactly that? Just open up a conversation and just be real and honest and raw and authentic, and let them know, I cannot imagine what you're going through. And I don't even want to imagine what you're going through, or what you're going through is my biggest fear. Just be real with them and ask them what they need, what would be most helpful for them. They may or may not be able to articulate that to you, but ask for how you can best help them, and then show up and try to be helpful, and ask for forgiveness if you accidentally step on their toes or say something that's insensitive or hurtful, and just please give them a ton of grace and be patient with them. Try not to minimize what they're going through. It's heavy and it's hard. At the same time, don't think that you can or should try to fix this for them. This is a personal thing that people have to walk through. What I would recommend is, first of all, be in a safe place that they know that they can go to if they're having a good day, if they're having a tough day, if they want to talk about their loved one. The more that you can do that and make it comfortable and okay for them, that's honestly the most helpful thing that you can do. And beyond that, though, if you find that your friend is just really stuck, and it's been several months or more than a year, and they're just really profoundly debilitated by grief, pointing them in the direction of additional resources. That's entirely why we're here, and we have a lot of resources for people, both free and paid, but pointing them to some additional help and support, because you as the individual friend or family member cannot be the totality of their recovery plan, right? Like you're not responsible for their healing and recovery, and you can't be their only outlet for support. So just encouraging them to find multiple sources of support. And if you come across good information, like this channel or this video, sharing things here and there, but really, knowing for yourself that it's their journey and it's up to them to decide what the best tools are going to be for them in their recovery, and just love them as best you can. I really do believe that if both sides of the equation come to the table with love and honesty and with the intention of just really trying to maintain a relationship, actually grief and grieving can be something that bonds you even closer. It can be the thing that fortifies your friendship or your relationship or your, whatever it might be. Unfortunately, I just find in the majority of cases that isn't what happens. And it's a sad thing. We just need to be open to talk about these kinds of topics and make it less scary and less awkward and all that kind of stuff. That's the reason why we do videos like this. So I hope whichever side of the coin you're on, whether you're the griever or the friend, that you found maybe one or two nuggets that you can take away and implement in your own life, in your own relationship. If you want more information on grieving and all the tips and tools, be sure to subscribe to this video and go ahead and drop a comment below if there is something that you have tried, or if there's additional topics you'd like to see us cover here on the channel. Go ahead and drop it below, and we will be glad to do videos based on your feedback. Until next time, guys, see ya.